Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Funding Space with MoonDAO. I'm Kara Howard. I'm your host for today and super excited to have everybody here. This is a really special day, a really special event. We've been preparing for you. And yeah, we're going to get started. We've got a 2-hour special here. It's a little mini summit with a lot of experts on the financing side of space. So to prepare ourselves today, let's prepare ourselves to thinking about what's happening in the global economy in the space financing industry. In 2024, the global space economy reached a record 613 billion, and it's projected in 10 years to reach 1.8 trillion. So this is clearly a growing industry. We're seeing people coming from, the space industry itself, as well as Web3 and deep tech. And our experts know a lot about this. So we're going to be hearing very specific leading edge industry knowledge about what's happening on the landscape. So a little run of show today. We're going to be hearing from Frank White, who is our opening keynote. He's going to be presenting on past, present, and future in funding space. Then we're going to be hearing from 4 different speakers, from Pablo Moncado-Lorates, who is the founder and executive director at MoonDAO. He's going to be sharing on funding space R&D and exploration using online native Rails. Then we'll be hearing from Alexandra Vidiuk, who's the CEO and GP at Beyond Earth Ventures. She's going to be sharing on the end of moonshots, why space and deep tech are entering their infrastructure era. Next up, we're going to be hearing from Ruben Portela, who's the founder of Wise3 Ventures. He's going to be sharing about funding the final frontier and how capital is evolving to support space and deep tech infrastructure. And then finally, we'll be hearing from Philip Rezabek, who's the co-founder and CTO of Space Computer. He's going to be sharing on 2 cultures, 1 stack, building and fundraising between space and Web3. Finally, we'll hear from Pablo at the end, closing and kind of what we can do next steps to stay engaged with our speakers and what's happening in MoonDAO. And finally, I'm Kara Howard again. I'm the co-founder and ecosystem lead at C3, as well as a growth contributor to MoonDAO. I've been working with MoonDAO for the last 3 months and have had such an incredible time learning about the space industry, supporting the DAO with growth initiatives, including this. And I'm excited to learn a lot today. And for those of us that are in Web3, like my ecosystem, this is a exploration in the future. And many of us are touching into these areas in different ways. So the space industry is definitely a fascinating one and moving very fast. So with that, I would like to introduce Frank White, who is the author of The Overview Effect. As all of our speakers are presenting, by the way, you're able to chat and ask comments and questions within the chat space. So we'll be fielding a few questions that we have time for. We're going to try to stay on time through this presentation, and you'll have the opportunity to engage with us along the way. All right, so bringing up Frank White here. Frank is a very esteemed author and space contributor to the industry for many years. He's the author of The Overview Effect, which he's going to share today. He has a very strong background in including his work with The Overview Effect, space exploration and human evolution, which is considered by many to be a seminal work in the field of space studies. He has authored or co-authored additional books on a wide range of topics, from SETI to AI and climate change. He's also the co-executive editor of Sentient Media. He's the president and board chair of the Human Space Program, and he's a professor at Kepler Space University, also a curator of space tech and AI information for Introact, a financial technology company. So clearly, Frank has got a wide range of deep expertise, and it's an honor to hear from him. Frank, feel free to take it away.
Thank you so much, Kara. So if we could bring up the PowerPoint. And I would like to just start out by saying that it's a huge honor to be giving this talk today. Whenever I give a talk, I remember where I was in the past Quite often, I used to be a substitute for more esteemed speakers. It started in high school when I was told, we wanted you to speak at the assembly because we invited the two senators of our state and they couldn't come. And then we invited the representatives and they couldn't come. So could you please come? And then it got a little bit better in 1989. I got a call from John Logston at Space Policy Institute at George Washington University. And he said, Frank, I don't know if this is an insult or a honor, but Gene Roddenberry was supposed to speak tomorrow on the next 1,000 years of space at our honoring of the 20th anniversary of the Apollo 11 landing. And I wonder if you could take his place. Well, I said, that would be an honor. And this is an honor. Cara asked me to speak. She didn't ask me to substitute for anyone. And I'm just delighted to be here. So let's go to the next slide. We have to take just a moment to honor the Challenger crew. On this day, 40 years ago, the Challenger shuttle exploded on its way to low Earth orbit. And as you know, we say that space is hard and space is also dangerous. My friend Rod Pyle says space hates people, Frank. And I say, yeah, but people love space. That's our challenge. It's an unforgiving and difficult environment, and yet we feel drawn to it. We feel drawn to it as explorers. We feel drawn to it as adventurers, but also as business people. And that's the challenge we have, is how to make this challenging environment work for all of humanity. The astronauts are really heroes. I don't care if you get on a rocket attached to a space shuttle or if you get on a rocket for a commercial space launch, you're always taking your life in your hands. So we need to honor every astronaut, and particularly this crew, which was a great shock for us when they died. Next slide. Cara mentioned that I am involved with the overview effect. I coined the term. It's a term for what happens when people see the Earth from a distance, from orbit or the moon, or even a suborbital hop. And I'm going to be talking about several space agencies. The overview effect has been a constant throughout. And it's been produced for professional astronauts and commercial astronauts. And it's very interesting because, first of all, nobody planned for the astronauts to have this dramatic experience. When NASA was sending astronauts to the moon, they were there to beat the Russians to the moon, not to have any kind of special transformational experience. The overview effect really produces an ROI, but it's a return on inspiration. And later in my talk, I'll show you that serendipity is one of the reasons we ought to fund space, because serendipitously, the overview effect also is producing a return on investment as we get to commercial space. But speaking of astronauts, I just really want you to have a sense of what their experience is. This is a short excerpt from an interview I did in 2019 with Tracy Caldwell Dyson, who is still an active astronaut and recently had a stint on the International Space Station. So Ryan, could you run the video?
My first look at the Earth from that vantage point was on ascent in my wrist mirror, looking at the aft window behind me, knowing that I was the first one that had to get out of their seat and film our external tank falling away. That was my first job, aside from all the monitoring that I had to do. And so my view of it was very fleeting and very technical. It was background to the task that I had at hand, and that was pointing a camera at an external tank so that it could be analyzed. Then when we got into orbit, we had a very fast-paced mission, which all space shuttle missions were. You had 10 to 12 days of fast-paced work. And it was my commander, Scott Kelly, who carved out 90 minutes, an entire orbit on flight day 10. And he said to the rookies, the three of us, I want you guys all in that window, and I don't want you to move. And he already pre-coordinated it, got the lights turned off on the station so we could see everything in its grandeur. And that was the first moment that I had to really soak it in. And discovered a lot of things about my reaction to that view in that relatively short period of time. And then, of course, there was my space station flight where I lived up there for 6 months, and every night that I could, I was planted in that cupola, much like the picture shows, and gazing at it. And there wasn't a single regret I had about the time I spent there. In fact, it almost, I dare say, grieved me to think about how in the world am I going to describe this? There's no words. There's no picture I could take to do it justice. There's no watercolors that I could put on paper to come close to the vividness, the ever-changing picture that I see staring at this planet. Everything from the colors to what changes the atmosphere goes through, depending on where the sun angle is and whether the moon's in the view or not, to just how fast we're going over the surface of it and the way shadows are changing. You could see the same landmass over a period of 2 weeks and it looks completely different because of that. To then looking at the stars and the blackness, a black that nothing here on Earth ever can replicate. And then you look at the space station around you and you're like, this is amazing. And all the people who are a part of this structure that are, I know, either at their desks, creating the next great marvel, or they're sitting in mission control, controlling everything I see. And that's where it kind of hits you that you are but a small fraction of the human race that will ever get to see this the way it is right now.
Let's move to the next slide. And of course, I think we have to also say that, the idea that she is only the small fraction of the human race that will get to see it, if our dreams are fulfilled and we begin to really move off of the planet in large numbers, many, many people will experience the overview effect, more serendipity of funding space. So Space Age 1 goes back to 1957, and we call it old space, but that's not to diminish its accomplishments in any way. The thing about it is that they did a lot, including with the overview effect. And in particular, here's just a short clip from Apollo 8, which went to the moon and did not land, but returned, just as Artemis 2 is going to do. And they took the famous Earthrise picture, probably the most famous overview effect image ever created. So Ryan, let's run this just short review of Apollo 8.
10, 9, We have ignition sequence start. The engines are on. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have commit. We have liftoff. The clock is running. Liftoff at 7:51 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have cleared the tower. Roger. How do you hear, Houston? That's clear. Forward point Bravo, Apollo 8. Now approaching lunar sunrise, and for all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. It's awe-inspiring, and it makes you realize just what you have back there on Earth. The Earth from here is a grand oasis of the big vastness of space. From the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good Earth.
So old space really goes from around 1957 to 1987. And we tend to talk about that as just nothing but government funding. But that's not entirely true. In those days, NASA would tell the big aerospace companies, here's what we want you to do. And then the big aerospace companies, we now call them legacy companies, would produce what NASA wanted. That was the year, those were the years of cost plus contracts, which are no longer part of the scene. But if you went over budget, you just added more money to the project. If you went over schedule, you just took more time. And new space has changed that a lot, as has commercial space. Okay, so let's take the next slide. Yeah, so we have new space now, and I call it starting in 1987 or in the mid-80s, because what happened then was that certain organizations like the L5 Society and the Space Frontier Foundation began to advocate for more private enterprise being involved in space exploration and development. And these were the early years in which Blue Origin was founded in 2000, SpaceX in 2002, and Virgin Galactic in 2004. Now, government funding is still important during this period. And in fact, Elon Musk would tell you that if they hadn't had a government contract at a key moment in the history of SpaceX, they probably would not have survived. So there's always been this interplay of private and government funding, and it continues even today. Let's go to the next slide. So now we're into commercial space, and we now have a situation which is called Space for Earth. Not my term, it's a term from one of my friends, Matt Weinzierl at Harvard Business School. But now what we're seeing more and more is satellites and other aspects of the industry where the value is really from space to Earth. This begins, in my mind, in 2021, when we had the first Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin flights. Reusability has become mainstream, and we also have what I call the new astronaut corps. Today, it is no longer necessary to be as accomplished as Tracy Caldwell Dyson in order to be an astronaut. It's really a matter of funding, your funding, to Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic and SpaceX. But even though the big three get all the attention, there are many, many startups with significant investment. Global spending estimated at $626 billion. But there is a big shift now for startups, and there's about 2,700 of them that have been tracked, with 980 of them having significant investment. But I learned this when I moved from being a space advocate to being a space analyst and looking at the financial side. Investors can invest in anything. They don't have to invest in space exploration and development. And so they need a return on investment. And so I've learned to look at these companies differently, where I might look at a company in terms of how it might contribute to humanity moving off world, or how it might contribute to the overview effect. As an analyst, you have to really look at it differently and think about, does the product scale that's being offered? Is there a profit that can be made from it? How long will it sustain itself? And so there is a new kind of ROI that needs to be attended to if we're going to continue this powerful public-private connection. Government spending is still critical. Many startups are actually dependent on government spending from NASA or Space Force to get traction. And so commercial space continues this public-private connection, and it moves into a completely new phase. Next slide. And now we come to my favorite space age, number 4, DAO space. I would say everything else that I've told you about is a logical progression, somewhat predictable even. But I see MoonDAO as transformational. They have raised $8 million through democratic processes to send 2 people on Blue Origin flights. And they have funded 80 other space-related projects. MoonDAO has a dream of a moon community that they will be instrumental in creating. And I believe, given what MoonDAO's been able to do, that that'll be part of the plan as well. I found it remarkable when I did research on this. MoonDAO has more astronauts than 150 different countries. It really is a space program. And Iman Jayangar, who is the second astronaut for MoonDAO, there's a short trailer here I'd like to show you. And he talks about another return on inspiration. So let's run that slide, that video.
What I want to talk to you about today is that you can chase crazy dreams. You know, if you have big, wild dreams, that's okay, and you should keep those dreams. And if you set your mind to it, you can do whatever you want, whatever that goal may be. Okay, so how did I get from being this awkward little kid at the Boys and Girls Club to floating in space? How does one do that? How do you get from point A to point B?
Hello, I'm Dr. Iman Jahangir. I'm an astronaut cardiologist and an educator. The space stuff was kind of crazy because I grew up, my first recollection of rockets was in Iran. You know, the bomb sirens would go off and we'd have to run to the basement. It wasn't until we got here and went to Huntsville, luckily we live, you know, close to the Space and Rocket Center, that I was able to see that, wow, these things are amazing, and they send people to space, they send people to the moon. When I first found out I was going to space, I was ecstatic. I mean, it was something I've been trying a long time. Even in the last 4 years, every opportunity I have to apply, I'm applying for things. In a lot of ways, I'm living the American dream. You can be an immigrant, you can work hard, and with the right support raise up to do big things. You know, for me, that was becoming a physician, and then it was becoming an astronaut. But I wouldn't have been able to do it without the freedoms that this country gives us, without the opportunities, and then without the people behind me lifting me up the whole way. Don't give up. I mean, if this is something you really want to do, you can be the person that breaks that glass and shows the kids behind you that you can, you know, you can do this. You can have these dreams.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So Tracy Dyson, a NASA astronaut, inspires us with a description of the view. Iman inspires us with an understanding that maybe you want to be an astronaut. Maybe you could be a commercial astronaut. And don't give up. Or maybe you have a different dream. Doesn't have to be space related. But, you know, pursue your dream and don't give up. And he never did. And he got to fly on a MoonDAO mission. Next slide. Well, Space Age 5 is the future, of course. I think it's going to be an incredibly exciting future. My two great passions in technology are space and AI, and I see the future of humanity off-world being very closely connected to robots and AI. And in fact, I think they're going to merge where space and AI are just almost spoken of in the same breath. Part of this is because there's a huge interest in how are we going to supply the energy that is needed for AI, and people have suddenly realized maybe we could put data centers off-world. Sam Altman has recently said just that, and he's talking about how OpenAI might well build its own rocket. And he's also talking to Stoke Space about a partnership with them. So it's going to be a great future, and I'm pretty sure MoonDAO is going to be part of it. I think it was Kara who mentioned that the estimate of where the space business is going to be in not too long from now, $1 trillion to $1.8 trillion. That's really incredible growth, and very few people have denied it. People are very bullish on the industry as a whole, but as I pointed out, new space companies have to prove themselves by generating a return on investment. So those two things have to be dealt with. And I know our speakers who are following me are going to go into more detail on that. So final slide, please, Ryan. In the future, the Earth will always be in the sky. This is actually the Earthrise photo. It could be a view from the MoonDAO space community looking back at our planet. When I first started working on the overview effect, I imagined it to be an experience of space people, not of astronauts. I started interviewing astronauts because there were no space people living permanently off-world, and there aren't any of them today either. I believe that over time, this will generate an incredible change in our species, how we think, and how we see ourselves. And there's going to be a lot of business out there as we move from space for Earth to space for space. I am confident that MoonDAO will be there and will play a very big role. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Frank. That was fantastic. What a powerful introduction for us, an overview, and really grateful to have you here. We had a lot of people saying hello to you on LinkedIn. I know you probably can't see that as you're speaking, but
Everybody.
I know a lot of people admire you in the industry, and thank you again for your contributions and for this opening talk for us to kick us off. So with that, we're going to continue on with the conversations around financing And coming next, we're going to hear from Pablo. Pablo is the founder and executive director at MoonDAO, and he's going to be sharing today on the topic of funding space R&D and exploration using online native Rails. So Pablo is, as I mentioned, is the founder and executive lead of MoonDAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, and it focuses on democratizing space exploration through Web3 technologies, including fundraising. And as Frank mentioned, MoonDAO has raised $8 million via crypto token sales to support space missions and research. Pablo previously served as a core contributor to Constitution DAO, which some of you may have heard of, is very cool, and raised $47 million in crypto to bid on the original US Constitution copy. Before Web3, he worked as a software engineer at Google on projects like Waymo's self-driving cars, YouTube VR, and Google X on exoskeletons. He has a patent and several academic publications in tissue engineering from his work as a researcher, and holds degrees in computer science and mechanical engineering from the University of Michigan. So he's clearly a very fascinating person, has a lot of experience in the DAO space, and I've personally really enjoyed getting to know him as well as MoonDAO these last 3 months, and he's going to get more into the setup of more decentralized financing, and we'll let him take it away. So thank you so much, Pablo.
Thanks, Kara. You make me sound so official.
Yeah, well, you are. But we're also a DAO, so we can be a little bit more community oriented too sometimes. So excited to hear from you.
My collared shirt, just to look very financially aware. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for that intro, Kara. Frank, your talk was great. Frank is a great space historian. He's really seen it all. So very honored to have him here. I appreciate that the AIs will be wearing MoonDAO shirts in the future. I think that's really cool. I hope that is a possibility. I hope that all of Frank's wishes there become true about MoonDAO's future. Great. So I'm going to be talking about how we can fund space exploration using online native Rails. In this talk, I will kind of attempt to maybe not piss off necessarily, but go through some of the ways that we fund space and kind of look at their limitations and how we could potentially improve them, especially things that, and I want to be very specific about what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about funding any sort of space research or exploration. I'm talking about things that are sort of superlatives for the human race, things that are very long time horizon, that require a lot of capital, basically need a sustained funding for a long period of time. So these are the things that I think push the human race forward. They're extremely exciting. And so, yeah, that's what I think we should be funding. But the question is, how should we fund that? Carol already went into my background, but I guess these are things I've done, but they're also my limitations or my own like biases. And so I've spent time in academia, I've spent time in industry, and then I've also spent time in the DAO world. So of course, solutions that I find will kind of be influenced by this. I was a part of a few big DAO fundraisers. I worked in big tech, but then also spent a lot of time doing research. So this is kind of where I'm coming from, I guess. And what I've spent a good deal of time on over the past 4 years is on MoonDAO. This started as a crowd raise to send people to space, and then quickly evolved to fund tons and tons of space projects. We funded over 85 projects. We sent 2 people to space. But what I'm most proud of is that we were able to take something that was very kind of nascent, especially in 2021, this idea of a DAO, and then actually follow through with it, which a lot of other organizations did not. There were many DAOs in 2021, and MoonDAO has really worked tirelessly in order to deliver on the promises of DAOs. And it's been a really fascinating and fun ride. But there's a lot that goes into this sort of stuff. So let's dive in. So, okay, why are we here? Why do we want to fund space? What are the reasons for doing this sort of thing? I've kind of bucketed into four main things. One is the economic reality. Some people ask me, is there a big opportunity in space? Well, of course there is. The majority of resources and energy are off-world. We could talk about precious metals. We could talk about so many different ways or resources that are out there in the heavens. We're still figuring out how to bring them back, but once we do, I think that will mint the first trillionaire on Earth. And so there's really a lot of economic opportunity to be unlocked in the long term. It's also kind of this ultimate technological frontier. And every time we do something that we've never done before, we invent new technology in order to do so. And a lot of that technology improves our lives here on Earth, but is also a very big innovation engine, essentially. And this is not only transformational in terms of like business and economic terms, but then also it is something that kind of advances our society, which is incredible. There's a strategic imperative, so it's the ultimate high ground. So it's important for sort of this. There's a military aspect to this. Whoever kind of controls the seas on Earth is one of the more powerful nations. Of course, you need to control the seas to have an empire, and now the seas will extend into space. So whoever has control over space will influence a lot of what happens on Earth. That's a important reason for making sure that the people that go into space have a lot of weight on their shoulders in terms of the power and responsibility that will be theirs. And then also this influences our civilizational foresight. So by that I mean, if we're looking at things like what the Club of Rome was saying, that we're growing on a limited Earth with limited resources, so therefore we need to implement these sort of like degrowth initiatives. I think this is actually very scary for some people, and it worries them that we're going to reach the carrying capacity of the Earth. But of course, this isn't true if we go into space and extend our civilization to the stars, to Mars, the moon, and so on. And that's a much more inspirational future. It's one where we're growing, we're extending the scope and scale of consciousness, as Elon likes to say. And this is the sort of acceleration timeline. This is the let's go out and explore. This is much more exciting as a future than to just say this is all there is. So we need to slow down. But the big question is, how do we make this future possible? And at the end of the day, funding is kind of the forcing function for these types of things. And so ultimately, it is the financiers of this future that will not only ultimately control and govern these entities that capture this quote unquote market share, but also will be the ones deciding what to build and how to build it. So we need to look very carefully at sort of these financial models and look at their implications in terms of how they affect the future. Because a lot of these projects require a lot of capital. So you can't just start it in your in your basement or something. You can't just work out of a garage. Oftentimes, these need billions of dollars in order to get off the ground. So the financing is really crucial. And so, like Frank was mentioning, the government has really been the main financier of space. even when we're looking at commercial space, a lot of them are receiving very large government contracts. We went from the cost plus model to maybe a more competitive model now, but still, they're the major financier of this whole industry, and for good reasons, because they have the infinite money glitch with Keynesian economics. You just print as much money as you want, so they so they can debase the dollar, like we're saying now. But I won't get into all of that. But anyways, they can print a lot of money, so they've got a lot of money, and then on top of that, there's geopolitical sort of competition. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of military reasons for why we want to have dominance in space as a nation. So you can kind of use that to your advantage, and raise a lot of money that for these sort of like dual use capabilities that support the military, but then also might have a business plan attached to it. And so that those seem to be doing pretty well. But there are cons to this, of course. One is, every 4 years, there's a new administration, at least in the United States. So priorities shift or can shift very dramatically. It kind of overrides maybe practical considerations around, what we're doing. It can devolve into a bit of a jobs program. The self-licking ice cream cone, like Pete Worden likes to say. And then also, there's kind of just an excessive amount of bureaucracy in government, waste, fraud, and abuse. We've kind of heard this story, and unfortunately, it's just very difficult when you have such a large organization that controls so much money. This is going to happen. So, well, that's one model. What if we kind of take a lot of the maybe operations, the innovation side of things, and then we give it over to industry, and that's kind of what we've seen in the sort of second space age that Frank mentioned, which is great. They can take a lot of risks. They have zero bureaucracy. They're kind of willing to bet a lot of the money that they've made from other ventures. Jeff can pour his wealth from Amazon into Blue Origin. Elon can pour his wealth from all of his other ventures into space. It's great to have a billionaire as a founder, because you have a big chest to work with in terms of money, and then you can also get money from government as well. But there's a few risks here too. One is that there's centralization risk. Like Kanye West likes to say, not one man should have all that power, and it's going to be a lot of power. So we need to look very closely at the sort of corporate governance of these companies, and determine whether or not this is maybe centralization risk, or kind of there's when one group or one person has so much power, it's kind of like the ring in Lord of the Rings, right? It has a mind of its own. So and I think this is also in some ways kind of unpopular. People scoff at the idea of this sort of cowboy billionaire going into space and say, okay, well, why are you spending all this money when we have all these problems here on Earth? And we should actually take this very seriously, because we want people to feel inspired by space and feel as though that it is making their lives better. And I think that there are many people that have real gripes with what's going on in space, and this is actually quite serious, because a lot of the money from space comes from tax dollars. So public opinion can and should matter. And then, I've already talked about power concentration there. So another kind of model to look at is VC, and I think that this is there are some venture capitalists that are joining us today. I look forward to hearing their talks and for them also to say maybe what I've put here is incorrect. But I think when we're talking about these like very, very long time horizon, extremely capital intensive sort of endeavors, it becomes very difficult to compete with the B2B SaaS AI risk return profile. So a lot more funding is likely to go to things that are maybe more short term, that are maybe taking a capability that was developed with a ton of capital, and then turning it into something that can be scaled, done rapidly. And I think this is great. This is great, but I see it as sort of maybe the tail of innovation, where you're taking something and then turning it into a business. And so these sort of things seem to need more short-term return on investment. And it's great for taking the stuff that works and then making it even better. But I think for the category of things that I'm talking about, it's difficult to rally the sort of venture capital funding. So and maybe just to be more specific, I'm talking about things like a long-term sustained human presence on the moon. Maybe there are certain technologies within that broad category that can be turned into businesses. But ultimately, this is likely a $1 trillion project, and so a lot of funding will need to be raised. So, and it will take a very long time. Suffices to say that we need better models. So models that can raise at least 100 million to $1 billion plus, that distribute risk well, that care maybe about the return on inspiration, like Frank was saying, versus return on investment in the short term, that maybe can become good stewards of power, and can attract and retain high pay talent. This is also important. You want to be able to incentivize people and have them win with you, and also models that are resistant to the fraud, waste, abuse, bureaucracy, etc. And so the question now becomes, okay, where can we look to find these models? Maybe we can look at nonprofits, or sort of like the institutional model. They also have their pros and cons. Maybe they can't necessarily recruit the level of funding necessary. Maybe it's harder to incentivize and retain employees because they don't get equity. There's a high compliance and transparency burden, which is good, but there creates a lot of paperwork. But the great things about them is that they're much more, say, mission aligned. There's less bureaucracy than government, maybe more than a company, and often they have more thoughtful governance. I would also put into this category things like, say, the X Prize, that creates these sort of prize models, and maybe these sort of like public-private nonprofit sort of models, where the government is working in tandem with one of these institutions. I think that there's something there, but the question is, how can you actually make this competitive on the scale of say, like a billionaire funded company, or something like NASA? Like, can you actually achieve anything that is on that scale? So, and I would say right now the institution model is still lacking, but maybe we can supercharge it with some new tools. And so this is where I think that there's something actually very interesting. So you can look at these sort of institutions and say, how can we make them better? And there are many sort of ways that you can do that. And I think that DAOs actually offer some very interesting capabilities. So I think that there's interesting ways that you can incentivize and align people at scale. You can raise a good amount of money very quickly because there's global liquidity, and so there's proof of this. There's precedent of this. Like Kara mentioned, I was a part of Constitution DAO, but that kind of pales in comparison. That was on the order of $40-50 million in a week, but it pales in comparison to some of these other crypto projects where people have raised $1 billion even with some of these tokens, or more, and the scale of this global liquidity is only going to be increasing over time. And these communities can be very mission aligned. you're spreading risk between a lot of people. So, some of these things, they average, for example, in Constitution DAO's case or MoonDAO's case, it's about $100 contribution on average. So people are more willing to take greater risks with a smaller amount of capital. And so I think there's something here, and I think it's worth exploring this. And so that's kind of what we've been looking into. However, there's some huge pitfalls as well. So what you want to avoid, obviously, is the sort of meme coin mania that we've seen, where ultimately someone say is profiting off of others by selling them a token, or insiders are selling early. Liquidity can be pulled. There's low transparency. It's difficult to onboard people. There are a lot of issues with this, and I'm not saying that everything's perfect, but I do think that we can address these issues. We can tackle them head on. And so I think that there's essentially three things that you want to get right. And institutions can benefit from this idea of what I like to call networked capital, and can they're very kind of concrete wins here. So in the first bucket is capital formation, so raising money. I think pretty much any sort of institution could benefit from a lot of the rails and speed and liquidity that could be provided online. And this could be in the form of say more traditional kind of regular donations to a nonprofit or something like that, but it could be something maybe more interesting as well, with some of the tokenomics and interesting ways where you can raise money and then incentivize people long term and reward them for the growth that they provide, or the growth of the organization. I also think that there's very concrete wins in sort of capital deployment. So you can operate in a very transparent way. You can have signal from the people that fund these institutions, where they maybe vote or they help guide the sort of way that projects get funded. And I think that this is extremely interesting, not just because it's transparent, but then also because there are ways of kind of decentralizing some of the power within these organizations. You can really audit what's going on. And then the last one is sort of the network value. So where does value accrue in these models? And I think that there's something very interesting here too, where you can essentially distribute a lot of the rewards to people that have helped fund these missions, and do so in kind of novel and interesting ways that maybe tie into the liquidity that's being provided, or rewards people based off contributions to these sorts of missions. And you can open source a lot of these very difficult kind of problems and missions, and create prizes or bounties, and have big community of people that are supporting these sorts of things. And that's what's enabled by like creating these networks of people that span around the globe and can use this sort of infrastructure. And yeah, I think these are very, very tangible and interesting ways to supercharge these sort of institutions. And so this is actually what we've been working on over the past year or two, where we are kind of tackling every sort of every one of these columns that I mentioned in the previous slide. So this is something that we're very proud of, that we've been working on, and essentially it's a way of raising money on chain. So it leverages a lot of the tool set that MoonDAO has used already, and then made it even better. So we've essentially done a lot of things to address some of the risks that I've pointed out. For example, we have automated lock liquidity. We have automatic refunds in case the funding goal is not met. We've simplified drastically the user onboarding, working with Coinbase with an on-ramp, Privy to make it very easy to generate wallets, so you can onboard someone who's not crypto native. And you get a lot of these benefits of kind of global scale, and tons of people that can participate in a mission very quickly. And we've actually, of course, we've already done this with MoonDAO with our first raise, but we've taken this new tool stack that we've developed, and we're able to use it to raise a little over $10,000 for Space Camp. And so there's a 30-day window. We had 50 people from our community contribute. You know, and it's a small amount, but this was really kind of a way of proving a lot of the technology. Is our kind of beta test that we ran late last year, and yeah, we were able to raise money for Space Camp and sponsor a multi-axis trainer, and we had some very awesome leaders from the space industry that contribute and use this platform, and so that's really exciting. We also have been operating a method of essentially deploying capital. We funded over 85 projects. Last year, we funded projects to the tune of over $188,000. And actually, we're in a current round of this. Votes close today, so if you're in the MoonDAO community, don't forget to vote. But we had 20 project submissions this quarter, and 9 of them have moved on to community voting. And so tomorrow we'll be closing that vote. So join us for the next town hall and stay tuned to see which projects ended up getting funded. But this is a model that we've been iterating on quite a lot, and essentially we have people from the community propose projects, and then we review them within the MoonDAO leadership, and then have the community vote between them. So. Yeah, so we're not just working on raising money, but then also operating on chain with that capital. Yeah, so like I mentioned, we've been iterating on this quite a lot, and yeah, it's very interesting the sort of things that you can do using this on-chain technology, where you can have many people voting on these things. Yeah, but then also where does value accrue in this? And this is where the network comes in. We have 165 citizens, so these are people that are within the MoonDAO community that can get rewarded for their contributions. We also distribute fees from trading. These are sort of like mechanisms that weren't really quite possible before, but we can basically create a platform for individuals to kind of tap into the network and then build on top of it. So they can receive grants for their projects. They have access to the Launchpad, and we have over 20 organizations that we've onboarded into this network. They have a jobs board where they can recruit from the network, and we have a marketplace as well. So these are sort of things where we're taking the tools and then trying to essentially deliver value to people that are mission aligned and grow from say just maybe a closed door institution to something that looks like a decentralized network of people that share a mission. Yeah, some of our key stats. So we have, like I mentioned, 20 organizations, 165 citizens, and yeah, we're very proud of sort of the growth of the network. And it's only really been around for about a year, so we're quickly iterating on this and making it better and better. So these are sort of the ways that we've tried to say tame the crypto dragon. We have audited treasuries, locked liquidity. We use quadratic voting to make sure that there aren't any whales that can influence our governance. We've built a robust constitution for the organization, and yeah, these are ways that we're kind of trying to address some of the issues that we've seen with crypto. And so, like Frank mentioned, DAO space. I don't know if it's quite audacious to say that this is the DAO era of space, but I do think that there's something here where you can have thousands of individuals that are coordinated and working together from around the globe. That draws from some of these previous models where you have essentially an on-chain institution that is supporting a mission long-term and raising funds for it on a continuous basis for many projects. and essentially having a lot of people win alongside with it. And the key thing that I want to pull from Frank is this sort of return on inspiration idea. I think this is, there's really something there where what we really want to do at the end of the day is have people dream bigger and feel as though the future is more positive than the present. And so, I think we really need these things that inspire us. We're not just talking about it. Like we have real figures behind some of the stuff that we've been doing. We've had over 220 proposals that have come into the community, and we've sent 2 people to space. Some of these things are quite crazy even to me, but I think it's amazing that what so many people have been able to do using the sort of on-chain scaffolding that we've provided at MoonDAO. And I'm very proud of the community and all of the people that have done projects in MoonDAO and done things with us, because it's really cool to see kind of all corners of the world supporting this shared dream. So yeah, we're in 32 different countries, or we have citizens from 32 different countries. We've done events even in the last year all over the world, in Baikonur, in Brazil. So we're really trying to become this sort of like institution that reaches people from countries that may not have a space program, but can still give them the ability to participate in something really big and interesting. Here's some photos from some of our events, because it really is about the people at the end of the day, and some of the stuff we've done over the last year. Here we were in London with Charlie Duke, Nicole Stott, and Doug Hurley, and we've our second astronaut Iman and Ryan, executive lead at MoonDAO, went down to Brazil to inspire children, and their artwork actually went to space on a rocket, and so it's really cool. We saw a little clip from the documentary with Iman, but we did a premiere down there in Nashville. We're active in a few different conferences as well. Here's Ryan at Dev Connect, and a Baikonur launch, like I mentioned. So I do want to say I'm wrapping up right here, but we have a really awesome announcement, and so really stay tuned for the end of this, where we'll go into that announcement. But it's something we've been working on for a while. I'm just going to leave a little teaser here, but essentially, really excited for this, and at the end of this summit, I guess, online summit, we'll be announcing this. But in the meantime, we're actually hiring a smart contract developer. So if that's you, if you are interested in what we're doing, email us at info@moondao.com. This Thursday, we're going to be voting on the projects that get funded. I recommend people check out that town hall. And then the following week after that, we're going to be doing a MoonDAO 101. So if you're interested in joining the community, you can attend that town hall. We'll have links in the bio. I'm sure we'll make sure that we can get this to you. Anyone who's RSVP'd, we'll send you a follow-up here. But we'd love to see you at the MoonDAO 101 town hall. And that's all I've got.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pablo. That was fantastic. A lot going on at MoonDAO, as you can see, and he's framed it up really well for us here today, and giving an overview of the different types of financing models that are in the space industry, and going deeper into MoonDAO's particular models. So we're excited for everything. Tune in tomorrow if you want, and next week. And I'm excited to see all the comments coming in on LinkedIn. I know we as speakers can't see all of that, but there's definitely a lot of excitement around these talks today. Interest in yeah, the ethical AI has been coming up, and different access to people's presentations because they want to follow up with it later. By the way, for all of you listening, this will be it's streamed live, but you'll be able to watch this replay here on LinkedIn again too if you need to come back and pause and see certain slides. All right. Thanks again, Pablo. We'll be hearing from you at the end.
Awesome. Thanks, Kara.
Okay. All right. And here we are. On our next speaker, we have Alexandra Vidiak. She's a CEO and GP at Beyond Earth Ventures. Today, she's going to be sharing on the end of moonshots, why space and deep tech are entering their infrastructure era. I'd like to give a little background on Alex as she comes up. Over the past 10 years, she has strengthened her position as one of the most dynamic women investors in the deep tech and space ecosystem. As CEO and GP of Beyond Earth Ventures, she's led several high-impact investments in the new space economy and deep tech, backing leading companies such as Zona Space Systems, Lunar Outpost, Xenopower, and Transcelestial. Beyond investing, Alexandra has emerged as a leading voice in deep tech thought leadership. She's a popular public speaker, and she's running as a chief editor at Substack, followed by 80,000 readers, and contributes to Forbes as well as the Financial Times. There's even more we could share about Alexandra. Very honored to have you here and excited to hear your talk and hear this from going now deeper into the venture perspective. So feel free to take it away, Alex.
Thank you so much, Kara, and thank you so much, MoonDAO, for having me. And I've been just listening, Frank and Pablo, and I was like, it's amazing how the ecosystem is growing. And I've been following MoonDAO for a couple of years now, and I think this is very unique, very exclusive, I would say, kind of very prestigious DAO. And I think I'm a big fan of DAO as a ecosystem foundation as well. So it's cool. Thanks for inviting me here today. So what Pablo mentioned is that there is a multiple ways how we can and should fund space, right? And clearly there is a big overview vision which Frank related to. So I want to talk about investment and VC and why today space is not just an emerging trend, but it's like one of the best asset classes in my view, and why deep tech IRR is actually twice bigger than traditional IRR today. So I have slides I'm just going to show. So I'm just going to show a couple of slides from my main presentation, which I normally talk about my fund, but a little bit about us. So we are deep tech VC. We are based in the US, and we call it Beyond Earth Ventures. And the idea that we invest in any technology which can help us to build economy beyond Earth. So here we talk about Moon, Mars, orbit, and so on. But in the same time, this is not a philanthropy. We are here to make money. We are here to build businesses, right? So our team won Mars Colony Prize in 2019, which is like, a big competition in the US organized by Mars Society. So basically, the result of this competition was a very long list of technologies which we need to develop to build Mars colony. And that's what was inspiration for us to actually start this fund. Funny enough that you can imagine that these technologies is not just rocket and satellites. And a lot of people ask me like, oh, you do space tech investments, you most likely do rocket and satellites. Actually, that's not. There's so many technologies we need to invest and build to actually build a colony or economy outside of Earth, including energy, including robotics, including compute, and so on. So that's exactly the thesis of our fund. And think about the next kind of sector of where we're going today. We're going to the orbit, right? So orbit is fully commercial. If you think about it, NASA almost doesn't have any budget for orbit because they think they've done most of the stuff already. So R&D is purely Moon and Mars. So that means like as of today, many advances happened, including SpaceX and launch cadence and launch cost, so changed unit economics of many different business models and so on. So what we normally say is that AI is killing some industries and AI is accelerating some industries. So deep tech industries such as energy, space tech, robotics, and compute is actually something which has been accelerated by advances in AI. And think about that, right? So AI can wipe code a website or an app like in 1 hour, but AI cannot go and build a nuclear reactor or a rocket, at least not yet. But this is something which we still think this is the place for us to invest. Let's just go one by one, right? Energy. Imagine we need to build data centers in space. Imagine we need to build moon base. Imagine we need to start mining helium-3 on the moon, or just power many satellites or anything. We need energy, right? Energy can be anything, can be solar. For solar, we need to think about efficiency, right? So silicon is already approaching theoretical maximum of efficiency. So new materials come in, such as perovskite, for example, which is actually one of our investments. And this is great to see that innovation happening, not just in the way how we produce energy, but also in material science. Big thing happening probably in the next decade is fusion. So fusion energy. Think about how are we going to build energy on Mars, right? The solar is not that strong there. So it has to be nuclear, it has to be hydrogen, it has to be fusion, right? So all of these energy sectors are innovating, and we see a lot of startups, we see a lot of innovation projects coming up, a lot of new patents and IP. And the good thing about that is like energy also needed for AI. So it's kind of double boost for us that, yes, that's another industry is driving this change as well. Space tech is, of course, everyone on this call probably heard many things since you are here, right? But it's driving a lot as well. Especially, you probably know that SpaceX is doing IPO this year, and we expect a lot of things happened after that. So last year we had 3 IPOs of space companies, and this year I think we're expecting 5 to 6, and SpaceX being one of the major one. The reason why we like SpaceX IPO is because what we've heard, that half of the SpaceX will leave and do their own startups, because they're all waiting for liquidity, they're all waiting for IPO, and that they already have ideas on how they're going to build the ecosystem around rockets and around that. I hope it will happen. Also, a lot of people who made a lot of money, a lot of early investors of SpaceX, who made 100, 500,000x, they all potentially would like to see, okay, this is the industry which made us rich. We would like to reinvest back. And I will look as well to look at the kind of, the whole ecosystem of new startups as well. Robotics, the space cannot happen without robotics, right? Think about Mars, think about Moon, think about everything which is happening now. The very basic robots plus all the way up to humanoids, right? So we have to support this ecosystem, we have to invest. And it's also, now it's a bit of hype. We'll see probably a couple of waves of what's happening in that area. But then, of course, the space and robots is interlinked, right? So compute and communications. You probably heard everyone talks about data centers in space. Elon Musk wants to build there, and then you have Eric Schmidt, who just got bought Relativity. Frank mentioned about Sam Altman talking to Stoke, right? So basically, you kind of see emerging architecture, like empires of AI plus space. You have XAI, SpaceX, Starlink. You have DeepMind, TPU, Relativity, and then you have OpenAI, Stoke, and maybe something else, right? We don't know what's happening in Meta. We don't know what, of course, Jeff Bezos, right? Forgot to mention. So all of these things happening, and it might probably will take several trials for us to understand what exactly would be the engineering architecture. We still don't know the problem with heat. We still don't know what will work, what not. Radiation is a big problem. we'll see probably kind of several different attempts, several different engineering solutions for that. But regardless of that, we need bigger compute. We need better communications. As of today, satellites generating so much data in space, they cannot really send everything down to the ground station, right? So that means we need to do edge computing in space. We need to improve communications. We should consider laser. We should do all the different wavelengths. So basically, idea here is that, we talked about space is growing. I just wanted to mention that it's not just growing in space. There's also ecosystem of different startups which enabling each other. So these technologies enabling space, but also space enabling these technologies back, right? So it's two-way. And we also like this dual use startups. I say, so we have several revenue streams. For example, energy, you might have nuclear energy, say, one of our investments is Power. So we have a huge market on Earth, but also kind of small but growing market in space. And it's exactly what we want to see. So resilience of business model, two or three revenue streams, and hopefully one market is unicorn, two markets decacorn. That's exactly what we want to see. And I think today, so actually the topic of my presentation was the end of moonshots, and I think this is exactly what's happening. So because we don't want to, people stop saying moonshots when we talk about deep tech, and you can see that a lot of major players and strategic players started investing in space. This is kind of early stages, but it's happening. And a lot of them talk to people like me who are experts who've been investing in space and have expertise. So, and the reason why it is happening, I think there's a couple of major macro economic and civilization shifts happening today, which making deep tech is such an attractive asset, right? So first of all is the geopolitical situation today. So we have China and US both competing to be back to the moon. Everyone wants to have best AI, best robots, best energy, right? Independent supply chain for critical minerals. This is all require technology. This is all require innovation. And you can't survive if you don't have good tech and good innovation. So that means that a lot of government funding is flowing into these sectors. For example, in the US, most of the companies which we're investing is VC investing $1 and government gives $3, right? That's not like 1 to 3 matching, but that's what we try to see in a financial model of a good founder who try to pull some non-dilutive funding from DOE, NASA, StratFi contracts, and so on, right? So that's the unique moment in our history. It's not happening anywhere else. This is the only asset class where you can see that. And it's not going to be forever. So this is just the government giving a boost to this type of technologies. So where else you can go invest $1 and get 4, right? And that's basically why people are looking at that, why people think about, okay, this is capital intensive, this is long, this is patient capital, but because you have this leverage, right? That makes it very unique. Energy demand is growing as we mentioned, right? So AI, at some point we will be kind of reaching the limit of what planet can support as growing data centers. It doesn't matter what will happen with AI, who will win, DeepMind, OpenAI, or DeepSeek, whatever. So we know that this trend will be developing. We know that new models will improve. We will have more and more models, have more efficient, probably at some point we will reach AGI. That basically means the only thing, we need better compute, we need better energy, right? We need more efficient grid, better storage, and a lot of potential options for baseline, right? So, and this is a whole area which is developing a lot of innovation, again, a lot of capital, but also this is something which we will have to have, and we will take advantage when we hopefully be landing on the moon in the Mars. So you probably all heard about the program Artemis, which we mentioned today, I think several times, right? This is like 97 billion program. So this is like the unique of our age, and I think it's amazing that we have it. This is a collaboration of countries. Of course, we also have program in China, which is also competing. But one of our investment thesis is to invest in companies which have contracts with program or Artemis, because the contracts can be a couple of billion or like close to $1 billion, right? So if the companies can somehow secure and show that they have high quality of technology and show that this is something which, they can work with, then for us it's a very good sign. It means like this is a kind of proven technology which will be basically fundamental and foundational for the moon economy at some point. And then I think we kind of also want to mention that robotics, some of the things which we weren't able to do before in orbit, let's say program a lab to produce semiconductors in space, or program something to produce fiber in space, or program some of our investments, for example, is like a medical lab to produce cancer treatments in space. Something which was not possible a couple of years ago because we didn't have such advancements in robots and AI. Today it is possible, right? Today you can do it, program a box, fill with liquid, send it to orbit, fly it for a couple of weeks, bring it back, generate some kind of compound crystals there, or I don't know, antibody molecules, whatever, and then you bring it back. And so think about the unit economics here as well. So if the cost per kilo now is around $2,000 per kilo, and then if the, let's say, a super valuable material cost $100K, then you still have the margin, you still have the unit economics on your side. Imagine what will happen when the cost per kilo will drop to $100 per kilo, when we have Starship flying regularly, right? Or at some point something similar, right? That will open much more new business models, right? So we'll have more startups coming up. So basically, I think kind of and if you look at the recent McKinsey, I think OBCG report, you need to find the right link for that. The IRR for deep tech VC is almost double to traditional VC. And that's exactly, I think Pablo mentioned that a lot of investors used to, okay, yes, we have software products which bring us money back like in 2, 3, 5 years, right? And then when you come to the deep tech, it only takes to build the product 2 to 3, 5 years, right? And then you can start building products in software, you can start selling tomorrow, right? Because you just put it in an app store and start getting customers. If you want to build and sell nuclear reactor, you can't just sell it tomorrow. You have to wait until you have a prototype and start getting the contracts. So the sales cycles are longer. The capital is very efficient, or it's very intensive. But in the same time, it's we have much higher moat. So with all the web coding, with all what's happening in AI, products like websites and app store applications, they don't have moat. A DeepSeek or like Lovable or Manos can build a product in 1 hour, and then the distribution is only kind of what makes a difference. As of today, DeepSeek cannot build a rocket or a reactor, right? So that's why this asset class becoming more and more interesting for investors as well. Plus the government leverage, plus the competition. So remember, nothing good happened after the Cold War, right? During the Cold War, we got Gagarin, we got moon landing, right? And then when the peace era, we had ISS, which is now 26 years old, super expensive and, almost impossible to book. But now we are de facto in a new competition it's another new Cold War between US and China. And that's where we expect to see a lot of innovation. So maybe geopolitical situation is not that great, but it's good for us as investors because we're taking advantage of the speed of innovation, of the drive, of the additional government grants, additional government support, which these companies have. And that's amazing for us. So I know it's probably the end of my talk, but the summary is here. Deep tech we see, it's not moonshots anymore. Don't think about space as you only need to invest in space. You have to invest in ecosystem, right? Think about other deep sectors as well, because we will need them on the Mars, right? This is unique opportunity now to build it. And I truly believe that we are not going to see another Google. We are not going to see another Amazon. We are going to see another NVIDIA. We are going to see another SpaceX. Ask yourself, think about next 1,000 unicorns, where they would come from. I truly believe 90% of them will be deep tech. And probably half of them would be space tech, and half of them may be energy, right? So this is the way how our generation is going to make money. We're not going to make money on banking anymore. That's was 1990s, right? So our generation is here to build and find the next NVIDIA, next SpaceX. So that's inspirational, I think, hopefully for some of you. Feel free to connect me on LinkedIn if you want to talk more about specific deals and investments. But thank you so much, MoonDAO, for having me, and I'm glad to be part of this event today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexandra. That was fantastic. And you're clearly very knowledgeable in the industry. And I love the question that you posed for us at the end around, thinking about where investment and returns and focus is going to be, going towards the space tech industry, going towards deep tech versus where it's been. And I'm not personally that active in space myself, in the space financing landscape, maybe you can tell, but this is like a really fascinating, thing to learn for many of us that are on this wave of emerging tech and wanting to stay connected to what's coming. So thank you for framing that for us. We have a lot of great questions or comments coming into the LinkedIn, so feel free to tune into the conversations happening over there, and we're going to continue on. See you soon, Alex. All right, so next up, we're going to continue on the VC track, and we're going to hear next from Ruben Portela. He's the founder of Wise3 Ventures, and his talk today is going to be on funding the final frontier, how capital is evolving to support space and deep tech infrastructure. So Ruben is the founder and CEO of Wise3 Ventures, a venture capital firm focused on backing frontier technologies at the intersection of space, AI, robotics, energy, and deep tech infrastructure. Wise3 invests from pre-seed to Series A and beyond. In addition to capital, provides a strong network connecting institutional investors with a global community of operators, founders, and technologists. Ruben has led 100+ investments across blockchain technology, AI compute, space systems, critical energy solutions, and has a clear focus on long-term mission-critical technologies. He actively advises several portfolio companies, bringing an investor's perspective shaped by hands-on experience in early-stage capital structuring. So there's a lot happening with Ruben in his world too. It was cool. I connected with Ruben, I think, through the Web3 network, and then saw he's also investing in space. And I was like, oh, this would be very cool to hear from someone bridging both worlds. So thanks for joining us, Ruben, feel free to take it away.
Thank you, Cara. Thank you very much for having me here. Yeah, exactly. We met through some of the investment we made in space compute, and it's amazing that through the investment we can connect with fellow investors, people interested in this amazing space This is the space, blockchain, AI, and the frontier tech. So, well, thank you for having me here. Thank you for the MoonDAO team for inviting me and hosting this amazing event. So, I'm the founder of White3 Ventures. We are super excited about the time that we are living here because the innovation is at top tier right now. So when we think about space, most people still picture rockets, astronauts, epic missions, something distant, right? Something expensive as well, something reserved for governments and superpowers. But what I want to start today with a clear statement that space is not longer like this dream. It is essentially its infrastructure, right? Like every critical infrastructure in history, roads, electricity, the internet, the real transformation does not come from technology alone. It comes from capital that learns how to finance it correctly, and also for people behind it. So that is the inflection point we are today. For decades, the space was a state monopoly. Then came the new space and era where private companies reduced launch costs and proved the innovation could scale. And today, we're entering in the third, much deeper phase, like Frank said before, the space as a foundational layer of the global economy, right? That is fundamentally change how it must be funded. So the idea is that space is no longer a vertical, it's more like a horizontal layer. Because for years, investors treat space companies like a standalone category. Satellites, launch providers, and exploration. But today, that model doesn't work anymore. Today, space, the horizontal layer that cut across multiple critical sectors. We have communications, we have defense and security, we have finance, energy, AI and computation, robotics, climate, logistics, a lot of different sectors, different segments. So like a simple example, without space-based infrastructure, there is no global financing synchronization, no GPUs, no algorithmic trading, no modern digital economy, no crypto, no Bitcoin, right? So we can see that the space is not the product now, it is the operating system. And operating systems are not financed like traditional startups. So traditional capital actually was not designed for frontier tech. And here lies one of the biggest mistakes we have made as an industry, the venture capitals. We have tried to fund deep tech and space using the same playbook we use for SIS. Pablo explained it very well earlier. There is this idea with short-term lines, immediate action, immediate traction, early unit economics, in fast exit. But deep infrastructure does not work that way. No? Every major technological layer in history has required 10 to 20 years horizons, high upfront capex, real technology risks, and regulatory and geopolitical dependence. And this, and for sure, strategic patience. And this is not how the playbook is right now written, right? So the problem is not the space. The problem is the mismatch between technology and capital. And now, this is the important thing, and now this is changing. A new capital architecture is emerging. Right now, we are seeing a new hybrid capital architecture is built around 4 pillars. Will be the first is patient but strategic capital. Investors who understand that returns are not linear but exponential once the infrastructure is established and mature. Second, the reconfigured public and private capital. Governments are no longer building everything themselves. That would be impossible for the amount of capital required. So they are acting like an anchor customer, the first investors and risk stabilizers also. This is essential in space, in defense, also in critical infrastructure. Like Fran at the beginning of the presentation said, SpaceX without the government support, would have died, dry of capital. They had money for one last shot, one last launch, and then that's it. And that shot was successful, and they got, I think, 1.15 billion of funding from the government. So that was amazing. The third part will be tokenized and digital native financial models, like Pablo said before, not as a speculation, but as a tool to finance CapEx, align long-term incentive, open access to new types of capital with retail, and introduce progressive liquidity without forcing premature exit from the traditional VCs. That is amazing that blockchain technology is allowing and supported right now. And fourth, to finish, is the operator capital, the capital that brings more than money, but technical talent, institutional contracts, industrial partners, regulatory access, etc. So this is great. And right now in frontier tech, capital is a commodity, but the execution is not. So one key idea will be that the space is becoming like economic infrastructure, not an epic narrative, because for years we have saw that space a story of epic ambition, and that is amazing for fundraising because it touches the emotional fiber of the investors. But now we must sell it as a necessity, right? Because the most important use cases today are not going to Mars, which is great for the humanity survival, as Elon Musk said, which I agree as well. But today, they are also communication resilience for today, data sovereignty, so important, distributed computation. There is a must right now for security and safety, the national security, AI infrastructure, climate, energy monitoring, redundancy for critical systems, etc. So this is because the world has become more fragile. The idea of going to Mars is also important because of that. Supply chains are fragile, digital infrastructure is fragile, geopolitics is fragile, as we can see every day and these past weeks. So space offers something unique, the infrastructure beyond Earth that is resilient, redundant, and sovereign. That is super important. And it's not science fiction anymore. It's not an investment thesis. This is happening right now. And I think that our role, the role of the investor, is super important and must change to adapt to this new reality. So I want to be very clear here, especially for those investing or planning to invest in this sector, that the frontier tech investor can no longer be passive, right? They must understand the long technological cycles, the regulatory risk, of course, dependence on institutional demand, but essentially investing in frontier tech is not betting on something, but it is building, because there are so many pieces, huge pieces that must match together, and building sometimes is more about judgment, resilience, ambition, that betting, right? So good thing about this is that we are early, we are not late. Sometimes there is the perception that in some markets is we are late, it's too late to invest. SpaceX is already on 800 billions valuation, etc. But there is one player there, and actually nothing could be further from the truth. We are still early. That is the right. I think, in my opinion, that we are where the internet was in the mid 90s, or cloud computing was in the 28, or renewable energies was 15 years ago, because the dominant players do not exist yet. We have SpaceX. This is one player now. It's impossible that one player could manage everything, even as Elon, like a Superman. But we have many other players there, and we are early to bet on them. And the standards are still being written. There is so much room to grow, and so many players that can play an important role in this history. And yes, that means risk, of course, but that is the nature of investing, right? So where there is risk, there are also a massive asymmetry for those who position themselves correctly as investors. There's an upside, a huge upside to be taken there. So as a final reflection, I would like to say that space has always been the ultimate symbol of human ambition, where we look at the moon to the space and we see how immense it is. So space makes us small and so huge, and the limit of Earth is right now our only operational layer. So the question is no longer whether we will invest in space, but who will build the infrastructure that sustains the 21st century economy, right? Who will have the courage and the vision to fund it properly? Because funding the final frontier is not just an economy opportunity, is right now an historical responsibility. We must prevail, and right now is our generation, the ones that has the tools to be able to be part of the history and to be remembered and put our signature there. So yes, that would be all from my side. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for MoonDAO and Cara for inviting me here. And feel free, please, to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always keen to stay in touch with fellow investors and passionate people on the space. So thank you very much. Nice,
Ruben. Thank you so much for joining us. Excellent overview on the bridging of Web3 and space financing, and excited to see what's coming up for you in Wise3 Ventures. I think that, yeah, he's got an active LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with him. And also exciting to see all the comments coming through and engagement here. We have 70 of you here live. That's a great number. And let's continue the conversation. Thanks again, Ruben.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and we are getting close to the end here with our final presenter. And excited to hear now from the perspective of a founder that's recently fundraised, actually very exciting in the space industry. And this is Philip Rezabic. He's the CTO of Space Computer, co-founder and CTO. And today he's going to be speaking on two cultures, one stack, building and fundraising between space and Web3. A little bit about Philip. He's the co-founder and CTO of Space Computer, as I mentioned, where he leads the design and development of the company's core distributed systems and cryptographic architecture. He's an accomplished researcher nearing the completion of his PhD in distributed computing and robust systems. His work spans networking, cryptography, and threshold cryptography applications in blockchain, particularly in the context of cross-chain bridges, it's a lot here, and trusted execution environments, or TEEs. Outside of work, he can be found on a hiking trail and listening to exactly the right amount of K-pop. All right, cool. Well, welcome up. Here's Philip. Great to have you. There's a lot of technical things that you're involved in, way over my head, but I'm excited to learn from you and hear from a founder perspective and recently fundraised. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Cara. Thanks for the great introduction, and happy to be here. So I don't have to introduce myself because Cara has done a great job regarding that. So with respect to what we are trying to do at Space Computer and the current talk, it's, as mentioned, from the perspective of a co-founder. How is it to bridge the world between space and Web3, where most of our current team is focusing and coming from the Web3 area. And of course, this is the part where we have a lot of expertise and currently are building the aspect of how can you actually introduce this type of information to the space. And definitely it is important for us with this type of talk to also share some of the challenges and some of the opportunities we identified along the way, and hopefully maybe motivate some early co-founders along the way. So thanks a lot for having us. As mentioned, we recently announced our seed round, so we are also excited about it, and definitely year 2026 will be very busy for us as a space computer moving forward as we are. So without further ado, let's dive into the details. So as we have heard several times today, space is open for business than more than ever before. And definitely this is the part where when we started to build a space computer around the year 2024, we started to see that the meta is definitely brewing and more opportunities with respect to compute, communication, will be shifted towards space. Where of course the enabling technology coming is that the aspect that the cost of launching are becoming more affordable and make the solution much more commoditized with respect to sending and building solutions in space. Whereas we try to position as a space computer is the focus on aspects of confidential computing, where of course we know that security plays and will play, especially in the future, more and more crucial role with respect to providing compute that is on the edge, but the compute nodes where the current model where we see that most of the times the one that is actually launching your infrastructure is also usually owning it. In the future, we will see that the compute will be used and provided by certain party, and third party will be actually owning infrastructure. This is basically where we see that it's important to provide additional security to the users. This is of course relevant not only for edge computing, but the general aspect once you consider sensitive computations, either for AI algorithms, storing your sensitive keys that will be allowing to communicate between different AI models. And this is of course very important for the sectors where such sensitivity matters. And more this will be becoming prominent as we start to shift more towards automation happening in space. And of course, what is I think very exciting for us that we are as of now focusing on the application of how to strengthen some of the security assumptions for solutions on Earth. But definitely in the future, there will be more and more space native application and solutions that will actually require additional security guarantees where we want to position ourselves. The state of the space is very promising with respect to the outlines we have seen and heard today several times that data centers are definitely a whole topic, but I definitely agree with Ruben that the current state of affairs is more comparable to what we see in the 90s with respect to the solutions that even though the future is bright, we actually are currently experiencing many of the challenges along the way, both on the compute and of course on the communications. It is actually something that we are definitely in early stage of how the industry develops, and it's actually something very exciting because we see a lot of opportunities and can contribute to some of the fundamental aspects of technologies and help to shape how the overall industry is going to evolve. As an example, something that is very common when we are connecting to any type of infrastructure on Earth is usually end-to-end encrypted. Current solution with respect to satellites recently shown that around only 50% of the satellite traffic is actually encrypted, meaning actually many of the data that are being sent over are plain text, and anyone can actually read what is happening under the hood if you have the right equipment, of course. So with respect to that, also we are building some of the fundamental technologies as a part of space computer, where we follow the story of crawl before you walk and walk before you run, because definitely something I'll be also talking about in the upcoming slides, and we have heard it several times, the timeframes with respect to navigating the space industry is definitely something that is usually done in a long-term fashion as well. We have heard a great comment from Frank at the beginning that space is quite adversarial. Definitely agree on that front, and this is actually the part we rather try to leverage to our advantage when building space computer, which is the power of the physical isolation, where this can actually provide very unique capabilities which are beyond borders, beyond reach, and are actually immune to physical tampering, which actually can provide a very unique capabilities when you're building confidential computing or sensitive resistant layer as a part of your solution. And that part, we definitely foresee that the necessary layer that will be needed for the application and compute layer can be focusing on space native systems, where we are focusing on the aspects of the evolution of space that are being compute driven. And we definitely want to focus on the execution, trust, and settlement that is cannot be remained earthbound, but definitely focus on the space solutions as well. So with that, I really wanted to introduce where we are as a space computer before we actually start to dive into the details of our experience with fundraising before, so to make a full story with respect to where we are and try to also navigate the space, which might be very interesting for hopefully many of you. So especially when we are entering the two industries, which to be fair in many aspects is a huge privilege because we can learn from aspects of what is happening in space. We can also learn what is happening in Web3. and actually try to find and bridge the common understanding. And definitely there is also many challenges with respect to the typical culture shock, like if you experience it during traveling to different countries. So this was actually in some aspects very similar, because from Web3 you are very much used to have a software first solutions where actually you are like building up the software. You have very fast cycles, whereas in the space it's usually very heavily focused on building up the hardware. Which of course is kind of coming along the line that space industry is in general a bit more risk cautious with respect to some of the consideration and very definitely calculating what can happen. Whereas in Web3 you usually tend to move rather fast and break things. In both cases, actually, failure is catastrophic when you look in the space. And Web3, of course, depending on which is the stage of the project, if you consider before you can actually reach the mainnet, the failure itself is iterative, and you can learn from that, which is something that usually you don't have the luxury if you look into the space industry. Look into the aspect that I think is very important as well is the general mindset that in Web3, usually you are talking about trust being aggressive, and you try to build by default system that is resistant to any type of centralized entity. Whereas in the space industry in general, we have a more trust in the institutions. And what is, I think, very interesting is also, of course, for us is the timeline that if we want to build up a compute constellation as we are trying to do, the time actually it takes to make sure that it's possible is definitely not measured in weeks, not even months, but it's usually coming in the order of years, because just it takes time to build the infrastructure, build the satellites, boot the slots, and make sure that they are able to run, which of course is very different to our experience that we are seeing in the Web3, where you can at any point in time deploy additional compute nodes on Earth and make sure so you can run your software and scale the deployments to many other people as well. Which of course come with it also the aspects that during the raising we were experiencing different type of questions. So we have heard several times that there was quite a lot of support coming from governments with respect to space, which is also one of the motivational questions we are often asked actually during the fundraisers, like where do you actually operate from? Which of course is very crucial because you can then have access to additional funding opportunities. And of course, something that is also quite interesting that the talent with respect to space is definitely something that is not fully distributed, but it's usually located in certain areas. Other part that is definitely very important for us, and this is actually something, is that what happens if certain stuff fails along the way, which is something that we have to definitely incorporate into our mindset and design. And of course, since we are focusing on computing space, we are in general very much power constrained. And this is something that always was the question, like how much power do you actually need to operate your solution as well. Whereas on the Web3 side, we definitely always see the questions coming. Where is the token going to be launched? How fast can it scale? And what is the network effect? And who are the developers that will be building on top of your platform and your solutions you want to build? So definitely different angles to navigate, but with respect to that, we try to look into possible synergies and make sure that we can navigate the solutions in a better way. And actually, we managed to identify common ground, where definitely what is very crucial for us is that both camps are definitely on the frontier of technology with respect to focusing on deep tech topics. And this was the common pattern that we definitely are leveraging with respect to identifying the right partners that are willing to take the difficult work with us. And the passion for deep tech is definitely something that we have in common. As we have also heard in the previous discussions, it's very important that we are focusing on what can happen, and the markets have huge potential with respect to building up an interesting technology as well. Something that we definitely also see is that usually if you are building Web3 infrastructure in some context, you actually have the access to the binary, but your solution should be deployed by hundreds or thousands of people in the wild, and they don't actually, you don't, as an owner of the or the developer of the code, don't always have access to the large scale system, because it's very hard to debug and intercept and communicate with so many large scale systems where you don't have physical access to the infrastructure itself. For both cases, in case you fail along the way, it can be very much painful if you consider space. If you make certain software or hardware issues, the failures can cost you complete, for example, losing the access to the infrastructure, which is similar to if you look in the blockchain space. If you look at some of the attacks, if you make some vulnerabilities in your smart contracts, it definitely can cost you a lot. And something that is actually interesting is the way on how something like a distrust is handled across participants. Whereas in the free space, we always focus on the application layer, having adversaries to make sure we are building robust systems. In the space, it doesn't necessarily mean as much as an adversary setting, but it's more like about alignment with respect to different parties on the goals that you have. And for definitely we see that there's a lot of tendency to make sure that you engineer your system properly to provide detailed specification on what you are building for, which of course is kind of bound to the aspect that you want to make sure that your solutions are built in such a way that actually they can last and operate in a much longer fashion and navigate in a space where actually you can have different type of changing incentives of the system along the way as well. So we see commonalities that both satellites and smart contracts can fail for different reasons, but when they fail in the same way, it's happening in actually in similar fashion because both of these happen in a far away environment. It happens publicly because if you have some vulnerability in a smart contract, as we know, it usually makes the headlines quite easily because you're usually talking about significant money being lost because your infrastructure itself is locking quite significant funds. And unfortunately, many times the funds are lost irreversibly, and it's very hard to come back to them. So this is actually something that we see common in both of these spaces, which of course puts a lot of pressure on us with respect to making sure that our technology is sound with respect to what we want to build. And this is a part of our internal team philosophy to make sure actually we are aware of that. Which is something I'll be talking a bit more in detail on the aspect, which is the motivational factor of how our one stack emerged. So we try to take the aspects from both of the worlds, which is combining software solutions with hardware that actually can provide very unique capabilities, as we'll be describing in a soon to be published white paper as well, where actually enabling these solutions help us to co-design a perfect match between those two components and make sure we can actually leverage the best out of both of these solutions, which is something very crucial because anything that you launch in space will be running there for the lifetime of the device itself. You cannot really upgrade it, you cannot really maintain it, and it's actually important that the amount of funding that actually you put into building something can be leveraged properly and you can extract the most possible value out of the solutions you have available there. For which the generalizing approach we try to make sure that it's actually also relevant for the conventional computing in general is you try to minimize your software in the sense of lowering the trusted compute base and make sure actually it's also verifiable by other parties. And as a part of the philosophy, we have to make sure that actually we are building a system that is assuming delays. It's not always possible to be able to communicate with your infrastructure because it's just not within reach of certain ground stations. It's isolated. It will be running autonomously pretty much for quite an extended period of time. And you cannot go and easily maintain it, upgrade it, or do anything to it. So you have to really make sure that your pipeline along the way is very robust. And you can consider, especially if we talk about the future aspects of environment you are navigating is very adversarial. It's in the future, so it's going to happen that eventually you will not be owning the infrastructure, which you want to provide ideally, but also you'll be deploying on ideally third-party infrastructure that you don't own and cannot operate, and you have to be prepared that your software stack can be challenged in this way as well. So this stack necessarily doesn't belong to either of the other aspects, but it's an environment where trust is expensive, and we have to make sure that the space actually where we navigate is the first hard case actually where we have to explore and make sure that our stack can shine and develop and be developed in such a way to provide and minimize the type of challenges we are facing along the way. So moving forward, we definitely see that space will be becoming more software defined. The critical infrastructure, as we have heard, for certain reasons due to power and others, is shifting more towards space. But of course, the other aspect is that more and more compute will be happening in space, but of course, more of general activities with respect to moon exploration and others will be happening in space. And that's definitely something where we want to position ourselves, like providing a secure computation layer for other use cases. Is of course among the use cases we have heard AI, defense, sovereign compute that will be providing and sharing certain aspects of constraints that we have to navigate in. And definitely as a part of the added value, we know that security will play a crucial role. Moving forward, either we talk about verifiable AI and other type of deep tech solutions covering cryptographic primitives that can be combined together with the hardware software co-design as well. So the overall approach is actually we did both of these calculators those are the same lesson, just from different directions that we have to be designing for various failure modes. Either we talk about thresholds or Byzantine faults, but in general, we have to have it as a part of our DNA when building the solutions moving forward. And it's actually something hopefully motivating also for others that the aspect of solutions you have to launch have to be definitely rigorously developed. And it's something that is very interesting from the perspective of engineering and research challenges along the way. So if you have any further questions, definitely feel free to reach out. Happy to also take your questions. And join us on our journey of space computer, building a secure layer for space compute in general. And along the way, we are also currently having a few openings. So in case you are interested, feel free to reach out as well. And happy to take any questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Awesome, everybody. Well, this was fantastic. Thank you, Philip. Appreciate you. I'm excited to see that white paper come out. That's going to be interesting. When does that come out?
It's going to be in Q1, so definitely before ECC, where we want to also dive into it in more detail. The current title is called Space Fabric, so it's going to be combining the unique features of the confidential computing, covering the confidential stack we plan to use, but also see how we can actually leverage some of the aspects of space as a part of our threat model, and also introduce a new primitive that we call satellite execution assurance, because as a part of the challenges we are seeing, it's important actually that you are, as a user, getting the confidence you're actually talking with a satellite and not with infrastructure running our space. So we have a unique protocol that we also want to show to the others.
Very cool. Well, hopefully we can keep that conversation going with our attendees here and registrants. Appreciate everybody that's commenting in and all the engagement. There's definitely a lot of excitement here. And I think this is it. So thanks again, Philip. Appreciate you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you too. Looks like my virtual background went off, so you guys can see my little apartment here, but that's all right. So I think we're here at the very end. Officially, appreciate all of us for trying to keep on time, and we all did a great job in explaining their specific perspectives about funding space. So I hope this was a nice overview from everyone, a true overview effect of the financing landscape. And we're going to close it out today with Pablo from MoonDAO, who you've already heard of, and he's going to take us into a little quick snapshot again into what's happening in MoonDAO and how we can stay connected. All right. Thanks, Pablo.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, so we've got a really awesome announcement, but I guess before that, just want to thank all the speakers, Philip, Ruben, Alexandra, of course, Frank, and thank you, Kara, as well, for hosting such a great event. So I wonder if actually maybe Frank can join me here on stage, so we can co-announce this. Hey, Frank.
Hello.
So, yeah, we've been working with Frank for I don't know, I want to say like a year now, and so I guess tying in some of the talk around funding space and how MoonDAO can support funding exploration and research. We started talking to Frank, and I think it's always been somewhat anomalous in my mind that Frank has not gone to space. It seems to me that the author of the overview effect must experience this firsthand. And so we started talking with Frank, and one thing led to another, and we're excited to announce today for the first time that MoonDAO is going to be sending more people up to space. We're going to be putting together a launchpad funding effort to send Frank to space. And on top of that, if we raise enough funds, we're going to be hosting a competition within the DAO using some of the tools that we've built to select someone to go up with Frank as well. And we're going to be launching this in mid-February. So yeah, it's very exciting for us. I think we're honored to be supporting Frank and making this happen. And this is part of a broader project that Frank is working on. It's not just us, but Frank has been kind of fleshing out a research project essentially on studying the overview effect. And Frank, maybe you want to give us a little bit of insight into that project, and then I don't know, any sort of reflections that you have on this. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Pablo, first of all, I want to thank MoonDAO for being interested in funding this project. Oh, here comes Moondog. Okay, Moondog, this is my animal companion. Yes, I know you're very interested in Leica. Um, okay, Moondog, you have to just go down here for a minute. Sorry.
Moondog is very excited, of course.
She's very excited. She wanted me to say that she's very excited that I'm going to realize a lifelong ambition. Yeah. So the whole idea here is that we don't really have yet a way of comparing how different space flights and different space carriers produce the overview effect. I've been studying the overview effect for 40 years by interviewing astronauts. And at one point in time during a podcast, I was asked if I wanted to go, and I wasn't quite sure what to say. And I said, well, yes, of course I do. And that is what led to me talking to Pablo and Ryan about the possibility. And so it will be a much broader project than just having me fly on one of the carriers. It'll be a much bigger project than that. But like so many people, I have to be honest and say it's a realization of a lifelong ambition too. So thanks again, MoonDAO. And I've enjoyed working with the team so far. And I'm looking forward to working with you and seeing if we can follow Iman's advice, never giving up, persisting, and making it happen. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of anyone more deserving than yourself. I really, truly mean that. And yeah, I think you have a message that is very needed in today's world. And so, I think I'm excited to see the return on inspiration from your flight. I think there will be, a big opportunity to put the right message out there about why we're going to space. And you've been working on this your whole life. So I'm just very honored to be able to support you in this journey. And I think it's really awesome that a lot of the tools that MoonDAO has built can support you. So this is why we're doing what we're doing, and yeah, it's just awesome to be able to work with you on this. So yeah,
thank you so much, Pablo. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, this is our first announcement, and if people are interested in learning more, definitely tune in to the MoonDAO community. We'll be doing a town hall on sort of onboarding within the MoonDAO community, and then of course in mid-February when we launch this, we're going to be putting out a lot more detail and information about this initiative. So yeah, it's really, really exciting and something that we've been building towards for a long time. So yeah, it's awesome to get this out there finally.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
Yeah, maybe some people could have anticipated it. I think there's definitely been some hints over time, but yeah, amazing.
All right.
All right. Well, I think that's it for us. That was super exciting news there here at the end, and we'll definitely be keeping you posted on everything. Great job, MoonDAO team. And thank you so much to all of our esteemed speakers, Philip, Alexandra, Ruben, and of course, Frank. That was awesome. So we're going to continue this conversation with you all on LinkedIn. I saw a lot of you engaging. We'll follow up with comments. We'll be sending you an email to keep you posted of what's coming with all the financing and space at MoonDAO. And yeah, have a great day, everyone. Appreciate you all. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kara. Thanks,
Bye.
Frank.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to MoonDAO, a revolutionary governance model and mission-oriented community that's reshaping collaboration in the space industry. Our mission is to create a self-sustaining, self-governing settlement on the moon to act as a launch point into the cosmos. MoonDAO is governed like a nation, with its own economy, constitution, voting system, treasury, elections, and senate, but internet native, and so without the limitations of geography. In 2022, we sent our first member to space, showcasing our model's capacity for real-world impact. Now, we're implementing key solutions for global collaboration in the space industry. We offer a borderless, permissionless platform that enables everyday people to participate in the future of space development and exploration. Be part of our lunar legacy and join the MoonDAO movement today.